Your twisted thinking could be making you sick. It could be sabotaging your mental health. Research shows that there's a connection between the way we think and the way we feel. So ask yourself a number of questions. Do you ever get stuck in a negative thought pattern where the negative thoughts just keep swirling around in your head and it's hard to stop them? Do you often think of the worst case scenario? Is the way you think about things making your life better or harder? What if understanding the way that you think could help change the way you feel and change your life? In this video, I'm going to break down 16 thought patterns that could be damaging your mental health. What's the good news? If you spot them, you can stop them. So keep watching as I describe each one. Keep a checklist. It could be a mental checklist or an actual checklist, and see how many of these might apply to you. Hi, I'm Dr. Lori Barker. I'm a therapist, educator, and consultant, and I love giving people information that will help improve their mental health and help people to start living their best lives. Cognitive distortions are basically mental traps. They're irrational thoughts that can distort the way we see ourselves, others, the world, and the future. In reality, they're rarely ever true. So let's dive into the most common ones that can impact the way you live your daily life. First is all or nothing thinking. This is thinking in extremes, when things are either one way or the other. It's black and white thinking when there's rarely anything in between. So if you think something like, I have to be perfect, if not, I'm a failure. Or if you think, either I had a great day or I had a horrible day. Well, in reality, most things are a mix of both positive and negative. Either extreme is very rarely true. Most of the time we function somewhere in the gray area. Next is overgeneralization. This is when you draw very broad conclusions based on one, usually negative, event. So for example, if you have one bad job interview, you think, I'm never going to get a job. Or if one person breaks up with you, you think, I'm never going to find my person. So you let that one event define you or define the entire future. Then there's mental filtering. This is when you filter out all the positive things and you only focus on the negative. So for example, if 10 people give you compliments, but one person doesn't, you end up focusing just on that one person. Or if your boss gives you a performance review and it's glowing, your boss says all kinds of positive things, but gives you one area for improvement, you focus on that one area for days. Does that sound familiar? On a similar note is discounting the positive. That's when you take positive achievements or strengths and you make them seem as if they don't count or as if they're not important. So for example, if someone says to you, hey, great job on that project, and you say, oh, I really just got lucky. Or if somebody gives you a compliment and your response, like if they say, oh, I really love your outfit, and you say, oh, this whole thing, it really just actually makes me look fat. Now we have the classic catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is when you imagine the worst case scenario or the worst possible thing that could happen. So one thing happens and you automatically jump to the conclusion that that thing is horrible, it's awful, it's the worst thing that could happen. So for example, if you make one mistake at work and you say, oh, because I made this one mistake, my boss is going to fire me. Or if you have a headache and your immediate thought is, oh, I have a headache, something must be wrong, I probably have a brain tumor, right? So catastrophizing is when you jump to the worst case scenario, when in reality, the worst case scenario rarely happens. Emotional reasoning is when you believe that your feelings reflect reality. So for example, if you say, I feel unworthy, therefore I must be unworthy. Or if you think, I feel unlovable, therefore I must be unlovable. Or I'm lonely. This must mean that nobody cares about me. Now, feelings are valid. They are. But feelings are often not facts. Sometimes our feelings can mislead us. Personalization is taking too much responsibility for things that are outside your control. Or personalization can be believing that something is related to you when maybe it doesn't have anything to do with you at all. So for example, if your boss comes into a meeting and you can tell your boss is upset and you conclude, oh no, I must have done something wrong. My boss must be mad at me. Or if you send your friend a text and they don't text back right away and you conclude, oh, my friend must be upset with me. In reality, there could be a lot of other different explanations for why your boss is mad or your friend didn't text you back. Mind reading is assuming that you know what others are thinking without any evidence. So for example, if you say hi to somebody and they don't say hi back, you conclude, oh wow, they must hate me. That's why they didn't say hi back. Or if you don't speak up in a meeting at work and you conclude, wow, I didn't say anything today, my boss must think I'm really stupid. So in reality, unless you're a psychic, you really don't know what other people are thinking unless you ask. Similar to mind reading is fortune telling. This is when you try to predict what's going to happen in the future, and usually you predict that it's going to be something bad. So for example, you might say, you know what, I know I'm just going to fail this test. Or I'm not even going to ask that person out because I know they're going to say no. Or another example is, you know what, I'm not even going to go to that party because I know I'm just going to end up sitting by myself. Nobody's going to talk to me. I'm going to have a horrible time. This is one that happens quite a bit in romantic relationships, where maybe there's a topic of conflict or tension in your relationship, and you imagine the whole argument in your head before you've even said anything. So you say to yourself, oh man, if I bring this up and I say this, then they're going to say that, and then they're going to get upset. It's going to turn into a whole argument, and we're going to end up breaking up. So in other words, you've thought through the whole scenario in your head before you've even said a word. When in reality, you don't know what's going to happen unless you actually ask or you actually try. Should statements are those rigid, unrealistic expectations that we have both of ourselves and others. So if you think about yourself and you say, I should always be perfect, or I should always say the right thing, I should never make a mistake. When we have those should statements about ourselves, often we end up feeling, that does a hit to our self-esteem. We end up feeling bad about ourselves because we don't live up to those expectations. Or we may have should statements about other people, such as my partner and I should never argue, or my partner should just know what I'm thinking. When we have those rigid expectations of other people, that often leads to frustration and anger. Labeling is when you define yourself or others based on one event, and usually the labels are very harsh. For example, if you make a mistake at work and you say to yourself, man, I'm so stupid, I'm such an idiot. Or if it's someone else, a coworker, makes a mistake, a partner makes a mistake, and you label them, they're so stupid or they're such an idiot. It's taking one event and letting that one negative event define you or define someone else. Next is magnification, minimization, and these are two sides of the same coin. On one hand, with magnification, we tend to exaggerate the importance of problems. And with minimization, we tend to downplay the significance of achievements or strengths. So let's use work as an example again. Say that you get a promotion at work, but you downplay that as not counting or not being important, versus if you make one mistake and you blow that up out of proportion and you think of that as catastrophic. This is horrible that I made this mistake. Blaming also has two sides, where either you're completely taking all the responsibility and blaming yourself, or you're shifting all the responsibility and putting it on the other person and saying it's 100% their fault. This happens a lot in romantic relationships. Let's say the relationship goes sour or it fails. Sometimes some people will put all the blame on themselves and say, I failed. This relationship didn't work because it's completely my fault. Or sometimes people put all the blame on their partner and they say, oh, it's completely their fault. They messed up. If only they had changed or done this or that, then the relationship wouldn't have failed. When in reality, most relationships, the saying, it takes two to tango. So usually both partners have played some role in the failure of the relationship. So neither extreme is helpful. It's more helpful to think about shared responsibility. The fallacy of fairness is when you expect life to always be fair. You know that classic statement, life isn't fair. So when you fall into this trap, you think things like, man, it's not fair that I didn't get that promotion at work, or it's not fair that this relationship didn't work out, or I'm a good person. It's not fair that bad things keep happening to me. Well, it's a tough reality to face, but life really isn't fair all the time. The fallacy of control comes in two forms. On one hand, you might believe that you have total control over everything. On the other hand, you might believe that you have no control at all. And these two forms lead to two different conclusions. So if you have the belief that you have total control over everything, that everything is 100% your responsibility, and things go wrong, then that is a hit to your self-esteem because you think everything is your fault. You can end up feeling like you're a failure. Whereas on the other hand, if you feel like you have no control in life at all, that all of these things just sort of happen to you and there's nothing you can do about it, that can lead to feelings of helplessness. In reality, neither of these things is true. And the key is to be able to discern what things do I have control over and what things do I not, and then make decisions based on that. Finally is the comparison trap. Have you heard that saying that comparison is the thief of joy? What this means is that you base your self-worth on what others are doing or by comparing yourself to others. So for example, you may end up feeling poorly about your career when your colleague gets promoted and you don't. Or you feel like your life is boring because you're looking at everybody else's posts on social media and you conclude, wow, their lives are so thrilling and exciting. My life, look at me, I have nothing positive going on. When you continually compare yourself to others, this can lead to feelings of inadequacy. There you have it, the main cognitive distortions that might be having a negative impact on your mental health. Whether you struggle with stress, depression, anxiety, or you just want to improve your mental health, learning to recognize these cognitive distortions is the first step in making positive change. Because by changing the way you think, you can change your life. So as you learned about these different distortions, were there any that you have a particular problem with or that you struggle with a lot? If so, leave the comment down below. Let me know which ones you struggle with the most. And stay tuned because this video is part of a whole series where I will go into more depth about some of these cognitive distortions, and I'm going to teach some strategies to help you challenge them and change them. Because remember, by changing the way you think, you can change your life. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.